The content of this podcast is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It's not medical advice and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease, disorder, or medical condition. It should never replace any advice given to you by your physician or any other licensed healthcare provider. Insomnia Coach LLC offers coaching services only and does not provide therapy, counseling, medical advice, or medical treatment. The statements and opinions expressed by guests are their own and are not necessarily endorsed by Insomnia Coach LLC. All content is provided as is and without warranties, either express or implied. Deeandra always slept well, but a stressful period in her life led to 48 hours of no sleep whatsoever, and this generated a lot of anxiety. Deeandra started to panic and thought that she had lost the ability to sleep. Doctors gave her different medications that didn't always seem to be helpful and came with their own set of side effects. For 3 years, Deeandra put her life on hold while she engaged in a long list of rituals and experiments in an attempt to improve her sleep. Gradually, Deeandra moved away from trying to control sleep and avoid nighttime wakefulness. She started to go to bed only when sleepy enough for sleep. She decided to live her life regardless of how she slept at night. She started to do things she'd withdrawn from. She no longer cancelled plans. She started to exercise again. Little by little, she reclaimed her life from insomnia, and her sleep began to improve. Today, Deeandra averages around 6 to 7 hours of sleep. She still has difficult nights from time to time, but they no longer have such an effect on her life. In Deeandra's own words, life is about the time we spend awake, not the time that we sleep. A full transcript of this podcast can be found at insomniacoach.com/podcast. Okay, Deeandra, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on. Let's just start right at the beginning, as always. If you could just let us know when your sleep problems first began and what you think caused your initial issues with sleep.
Well, it started in 2018. I was going through a stressful time in my life. Lots of stress, lots of problems at like work and changing houses and stuff like that. So I was going through a tremendous amount of stress, but I actually used to be a really, really great sleeper, even through stress and anxiety. I mean, strangely, I never really struggled that much with sleep before. But in 2018, I don't know, maybe it was lots of stuff going on, and I basically just started struggling with sleep. Like all of a sudden, I couldn't sleep, and I just before I would have like a sleepless night every now and then, and I wouldn't really think much of it. It would happen, and the next night I would be okay. I mean, I would go to sleep and I would recover from that. So the first night I struggled, like after this lots of stress, I struggled for sleep that one night, sleepless night. Like, I said, okay, a sleepless night, it happens, every once in a while. It's nothing in particular. And the next night I will sleep, and the next night happened, and still I didn't sleep. And then I thought, oh my God, this has never happened before. Why I'm still not sleeping? I mean, this is the second night I'm not sleeping. This is new. I mean, this is not something I have experienced before. So there must be something wrong with me. I mean, who doesn't sleep for 48 hours? I didn't really. I mean, of course, I didn't really go for the 8 hours straight without sleeping. Probably I slept something, but in my mind, I wasn't sleeping like for even 1 minute.
Yeah.
And the anxiety went through the roof right after that second night, and I really started panicking that maybe something is wrong with me. I mean, my brain stopped working.
Yeah.
I have a neurological problem or something, because after this 48 hours of like sleepless nights, I was really having lots of anxiety, and I just couldn't understand how could I not like recover from that. So I I I went like to the doctors, and I said, I'm struggling to sleep here. I don't know what's wrong. I mean, so all of a sudden, I know I am having this trouble sleeping. So they gave me a medication, a tranquilizer, so I can like recover from that. And they told me, you know what, you're going through some stress. Maybe just take it for like 2 weeks to get your sleep back on track, so you can recover and get some sleep, and then you will see that your sleep will magically recover on its own. It's like a cycle, so it will get back on track without even like trying it. So I believed them. I said, okay, maybe something is wrong with my brain or something. I don't know. I took the medication, and of course, after stopping the medication, I started having the sleepless nights again. And this was really strange. I mean, I said, why is my sleep not getting back on track? Something is wrong here. I mean, am I just going crazy? Am I losing my mind here? Am I going through? I mean, I was really panicking. It was really consuming even like my mind. Every day I was only thinking about it. So I went to see a psychiatrist, and I explained what I was what I was going through, and they said, okay, maybe you're depressed. Maybe you have a lack of serotonin in your brain. That's why you're not sleeping. So I said, of course I'm depressed. I mean, I'm not sleeping. So I mean, anybody would be a little bit depressed, I believe, after not sleeping for 2 days. So I said, okay, of course my mood is not great, because I'm really tired, and I don't feel well. But I don't think I mean, there was nothing else. I mean, it was only the sleep at that point. Even because the initial stressors was actually resolved after. I mean, I was only struggling with sleep at that point. I mean, the initial stressors was really not an issue anymore. So I was just struggling with sleep for no reason. And they told me, maybe, you need to fix your serotonin and get back on get it, just get back on, again, get back on track. Nobody explained, maybe you need to address something else. They just said, take this medication, take the antidepressant, and it will get better. So of course, again, I believed the doctor, and I took the antidepressant, and I, it was a sedative antidepressant. And I took it for like 6 months, believing that this was the cure for me. I mean, it was going to help me to fix my serotonin again, because I believe that, something is broken. Something is broken. I don't know if it's normal for someone just to. I really believe that I lost this magical ability to sleep. I mean, I believe that everybody had like this button that made them all like, that magical ability to make them sleep, and I lost it. I mean, I really thought I lost this ability, and it came in my mind that I will never have this ability again. I mean, I will always rely on this medication, was actually which gave me really bad side effects. I was really tired, and it didn't even work at times. So I was really taking it for no reason at one point, because it didn't really work every night. I mean, it would work for a couple of nights, and then it wouldn't work, and then it was really didn't make sense after a while to take it. So I said, I don't feel comfortable continuing to take it. So I basically tried to wean off the medication, and this was also a struggle because you just can't get off these medications without a long period of like titrating the medication and just making sure that you're taking a lower dose every week or something. And it was really really difficult time in my life because I needed to like weigh the dose and just being careful that because I believe that if I just stop taking it, I will not sleep. I mean, I need to do this carefully so I can recover from this. And no one actually mentioned to me, they actually talked to me about going to therapy, but they mentioned CBT in general for anxiety. And I went to this therapist, and we talked about anxiety and unresolved issues, trauma, lots of stuff, but we never really addressed the insomnia on itself. I mean, they always told me, I mean, I know I'm an anxious person, and I know that I dwell on things more than others probably, and that's why I said, we need to work on anxiety then if this is causing my insomnia. But no one really said something about explaining sleep to me or anything else. I mean, we would always like work on the anxiety part of it, and it did help. It did help, to lower the anxiety and just being less anxious and knowing all the all the mindfulness techniques to get through the day, but nothing else. I mean, I would just find myself terrified that my sleep would really always be this way. I mean, I started asking myself, am I going to be at I was 29 at that point, and I was I turned 30, and I said, I'm 30 years old, and I can't believe that I'm going through this at 30. I thought that I would be doing lots of different things. I mean, I really wanted to go and study again. I wanted to go back to school. So this was put on hold now because I was struggling so much with sleep. So basically sleep was becoming like my life for like, I mean, it became everything I thought about from the morning, from waking up and till the evening time. So it was really the only thing I thought about, and it really consumed my day, and it was a really, this is how it started, this is how the insomnia began. But I then I tried to I know I tried to go to my therapist, and I believed her when she said, the insomnia is probably going to go away when you're less anxious, and maybe after 6 months of antidepressants, your serotonin levels are now higher, so you're going to sleep. But I was really afraid. I said, this is my life now. I'm just going to be this person that have to rely on sleeping pills, or maybe has to rely on medications for the rest of their life. So this was it.
I think it's really interesting when people describe their background kind of before chronic insomnia struck. Some people tell me that I've always kind of struggled with sleep throughout my life, but then this time around, for some reason, the sleep disruption didn't disappear. And then other people like yourself tell me, I'd never had a problem with sleep, and then this sleep disruption come around, and it just would not go away. And I think in a way that can generate even more worry and anxiety, because it just had so much more mystery to the situation, right? And then we can start to worry that something has changed, like we've lost something, like some ability or some chemical.
Exactly. I mean, I really used to say, like, I even used to say in the past like that sleep was my superpower. At
Yeah.
some point, I used to say to my husband, like I was even like I struggled with anxiety, but I would say, I will sleep it off. I mean, I will go to sleep and then just, I used to be a really great sleeper. That sleep was actually um my favorite time of the day.
Yeah.
Going to bed and just relaxing and going to sleep and just waking up. And so I really, when this happened, I just, I really believed them when they said something is wrong with your brain. I mean,
Yeah.
there, you're some chemical hormonal issue, something is wrong.
Yeah.
There can
Yeah.
be one, a switch, and just like that, I can sleep. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So what you touched upon the fact that, because this insomnia was just kind of consuming your life, and it was basically making you put your life on hold, right? You said you had these big plans to go back to
Yeah.
school and start studying again,
Hmm.
so you put them on hold. Were there any other kind of changes that you made to how you live your life or how you went about your days in response to this insomnia, either as a way to try and protect yourself from the effects of sleep disruption or to try and generate better conditions for sleep? What kind of changes had you made to how you were living your life?
Hmm. Well, insomnia really affected my life when it happened, because I would wake up and I would like just say, I have to survive today. So I
Yeah.
would just do the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
I will just stay, on the couch or something. I will not exercise so I can like survive today and
Yeah.
and get through the day. And it's really sad, but I had my son who would ask me like to do stuff with them, and I would say no, I can't. I mean, I'm really tired. I have
Yeah.
to like lay down or something. So even like I would cancel plans with my family. um I mean, I really enjoyed exercising, so I would really not go to the gym anymore, because I said, I can't exercise. If I didn't sleep last night, I just can't do that. I mean,
Yeah.
it would really, consume my energy even more. I can't even get through the day. So how can I like do some physical activity without having any energy? So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, insomnia was really like you know it had like a huge grip on my life,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just where I think it can be so helpful to kind of peel away the mystery of insomnia, because from person to person, the way insomnia works, it's almost identical. Some of
Hmm.
us, we actually have this model that regular listeners of this podcast will be familiar with, called the 3P model, that we use to describe the development of chronic insomnia. And the first P is just predisposing factors. And you kind of touched upon, I feel like maybe I'm a little bit more of an anxious person than other people. So
Hmm.
already maybe we're a little bit more susceptible to some temporary sleep disruption.
Hmm.
And so then we have the second P, which is the precipitating factor. This is just whatever the trigger for a round of sleep disruption was. So, for example, what you were describing, there was a stressful time in your life, you were moving house, lots of different things going on. So we would probably expect people to experience some sleep disruption at that time. So now we're kind
Hmm.
of in the sleep disruption stage of insomnia, like 9 times out of 10, probably more often than that. Once that initial trigger is no longer relevant, or we've adapted to it, our sleep gets
Hmm.
right back on track all by itself. But if it doesn't, and when it doesn't, as you know, and everyone listening to this will know, that's when the real worry starts, and the real mystery seems to be generated around insomnia. But again, there is no mystery. When the insomnia sticks around, it's down to that third P in the model, which are the perpetuating factors. And these are all the things that we completely understandably do in response to the sleep disruption, to try and fix our sleep or improve our sleep or help to manage all the side effects that come along with insomnia. that kind of backfire on us and actually perpetuate the insomnia and make it harder for our body to just naturally get sleep back on track. So we might do things like, just to use your own examples, because we feel so fatigued, we're going to just want to be less active. We're going to want to spend more time being sedentary, being on the couch. We kind of might withdraw from doing things that are important to us or that add enrichment to our lives. You mentioned for yourself, exercise and going to the gym was important to you. Spending quality time with your child was important to you. And these are all things that changed in response. And other common things that we might do are going to bed earlier or staying in bed later, just spending more time in bed in general to try and catch up on sleep or to kind of make sleep happen. All that kind of ongoing research. And again, all of these things are completely understandable why we would do them, because we're going through difficulty. So we want to improve the situation and fix the situation. But sleep is one of these things that doesn't respond well to effort. And it's when we start to do all these things in response that actually end up perpetuating the sleep disruption. And I think it can be so helpful to recognize this, because it strips insomnia of the mystery. We don't have to start. Well, if we can identify our own struggle in that model, then perhaps we don't have to worry quite so much that there's something uniquely wrong, that our brain is now missing a chemical, or there's some kind of hormonal imbalance, or we've lost that magical sleep switch. Because we never lose that ability to sleep. It's just that our understandable response to that sleep disruption is usually what is usually what provides insomnia with the oxygen it needs to survive for the longer term.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. And it was actually an obsession. Like I started to obsess about sleep, like in a way that like I said before, my life now revolved about sleep. Basically, I would think about sleep like all day long. Am I sleeping enough? Am I not sleeping enough? Did I get enough sleep? How can I cope? I always heard about like the 8 hours, like the 8 hours. You should get at 8 hours. Otherwise, you're not healthy enough. You're not. Your brain will be like you're not functioning. I used to read, like, go online and read all these articles about insomnia and maybe the effects on health. And I know I also struggle with health and anxiety. So this would like give me much more, even more anxiety, because I thought, I'm causing myself I might get sick or something if I don't sleep like those 8 hours. So and I when I discovered your podcast, I was walking one day outside, and I heard someone on your podcast say something that really actually started crying because it really touched me, because they said something like, life is about the time we spend awake, not the time that we sleep. So life is the time we spend awake. So this is what matters. Sleep is just, it doesn't matter. That life is about the moments that we spend awake. So I shouldn't obsess about sleep so much. And I actually, I said, they are. I completely agree, because I wasn't living anymore. Basically, I would just I cared about was sleep. Actually, I didn't care about my life. I just wanted to sleep. This is what was my main goal in life, basically, for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's completely understandable, right? Because our brain, its prime directive is to look out for us. And so it's always going to want to, put pressure on us to fix any problems that it perceives are going on in our lives. So it's going to tell us, do that research, try this, try that, do this, do that. And it can be really easy to just get caught up in all of those things our brain is telling us. But with a bit of practice, sometimes we can listen to all that stuff the brain is telling us, but then take a step back from it and then decide consciously how we want to respond to everything our brain is telling us. We don't necessarily have to do everything our mind tells us. We still have that control, even though sometimes it can feel like we don't. There's always control we have over our actions, and starting to do some things when we're awake that are important to us and that bring us a sense of enrichment, even when our mind is saying, no, you can't do that, you must rest. It can be really helpful. And these don't have to be huge things. Like if exercise is really important to you, it doesn't mean you have to start doing 20 miles on the treadmill. It might just be reading about exercise or reading about fitness. Just any small actions you can take that just help you start moving back toward the kind of life you want to live, rather than responding immediately to everything your brain is telling us, which usually ends up moving us away from the kind of life we want to live. And so, just to take a quick step back, you mentioned that, when you were working through my course, you found it really helpful just to learn more about sleep and learn more about insomnia, and that knowledge helped you change your relationship with sleep. Can you remember any of the key insights that you learned that you found most helpful? I mean, you just touched upon that kind of insight about life really is about what we do when we're awake as opposed to when we're asleep. But was there anything in terms of just knowledge about sleep and insomnia that you found really helpful?
They always told me that I should go to sleep. Like when you go to the doctors, they give you like this information, sleep hygiene and like this all list. You shouldn't like watch like TV before bed. You shouldn't, work in bed. You shouldn't you should always go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time. And I would do that. I mean, what I actually learned from you from when I started like your course, that I was going to bed like at the time that I wasn't actually sleepy. I mean, I was just, there was this time that I said, okay, this is my sleep, my bedtime. So I should go to bed at this time. And I shouldn't in any, I was really strict about it in a way that it was really actually affecting my life, honestly, because I couldn't even go out to dinner with my husband because I had this bedtime. And it was even like, it was a ridiculous bedtime because it was not 9:00. So it was really early. So I had to be in bed by 9, and I had to be in bed by 9. And this was my bedtime, and I couldn't even change it because he told me that I have to go to bed at that time. And I didn't so when I enrolled in your course, I learned that I should actually, go to bed when I'm sleepy so I can, prepare the perfect conditions for sleep. So I started like doing that. I started not going to bed, when it was 9:00. I mean, waiting till I'm sleepy unless I'm sleepy. So I instead of like going to bed and just waiting for sleep to happen, even if I'm not that sleepy, I would change that. I mean, I changed that. So I would wait a little bit, not just, at 9:00, maybe waiting till I get a little bit, heavy eyes, doing something before bed or something else. So I can, so I can feel more ready for bed. And that's one of the things that I did. Yeah.
We often see this advice, go to bed at the same time, get out of bed at the same time. I think it's close. I think that getting out of bed by the same time each day can be really helpful. It's something I always encourage people to do because it gives the body clock this strong, consistent morning anchor, so it can help regulate between sleep and wakefulness. But going to bed at the same time at night can be less helpful because a clock doesn't know when we're sleepy enough for sleep. What I think can be helpful is having like an earliest possible bedtime, because like I touched upon earlier, a common behavior that can perpetuate sleep disruption is spending too much time in bed or just generally allotting too much time for sleep. So if we can give ourselves an earliest possible bedtime, that helps us avoid allotting too much time for sleep, spending too much time in bed. But it also helps change our mindset about it. This isn't the time you must go to bed. It's just an earliest possible bedtime. So if that bedtime arrives and you don't feel sleepy enough for sleep, then we just don't go to bed until we do feel sleepy enough for sleep. And when we are feeling a strong sense of sleepiness, conditions are so much better for sleep to occur. And I don't know if you recognize this in your own experience, but something I regularly hear from people is when I changed that, when I started to go to bed much later, I realized like what sleepiness felt like again, because that sleepiness had been replaced by just ongoing fatigue, like brain fog, exhaustion, feeling worn out. And it's really easy to confuse that with sleepiness. So when we get that sense of sleepiness back, this real struggle to actually stay awake, that in itself can just be such a powerful experience and a great reminder that we haven't lost the ability to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And I actually really used to enjoy like this night, I mean, before bed, I would like watch a movie with my husband or something and just, wind down or have like a cup of tea or a cup of like, herbal tea or something. I used to love that, love this, this bedtime routine. And after fixating so much on sleep, I would just like a soldier. I was like, at 9, I had to go to bed and just be under the
Yeah.
covers, and I didn't even like give myself this like even like time that I really enjoyed actually, and I mean I should give myself like this enjoyable time by myself so I can do something enjoyable and before bed that relaxes me. And I was really I was fixating so much that I didn't even for a long time I didn't even put my son to bed. I used to put him to bed every night, read him a story and just put him to bed. I didn't even do that because my my bedtime had to be 9 o'clock and I
Yeah.
had to be under the covers. So I it really I mean it really affected like this even this time that I this quality time I had with my son before going to bed. So he he actually missed that, and he used to tell me I missed that,
Yeah.
I want you to put me to bed and just stay with me till I fall asleep. And I used to say, I'm sorry baby, but I have to be in bed. I mean, I feel bad about it, but
Yeah.
I was really obsessed. They told me that I had to be in bed every night at the same time, and I followed these rules every night at the same time. And I just I believed that I was actually like setting myself for success if I go to bed early, because I said to myself, okay, if I'm bed by 9 and I didn't sleep, so I have lots of time, so I can try to sleep. And at one point I would sleep, but what would actually happen that I would go to bed at 9 and I would be still awake, after 3 hours, because I was not actually sleepy when I went to bed at 9. So I was at midnight, I would be anxious and panicking and,
Yeah.
saying, this is going to be a sleepless night and so on, so on. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so difficult. I think insomnia is really likes to trick us. It likes to, it's almost like it tries to do deals with us. It's like for example, don't read to your son. Make sure you go to bed at 9 o'clock and then you'll feel better. That's what insomnia is telling us to do. But insomnia has an ulterior motive. Insomnia is telling us to do that kind of stuff because that's what gives insomnia the oxygen it needs to stick around. And say it is a really tricky customer, insomnia. And this is why it can be helpful to do just address any of these changes we can recognize we've made in response to insomnia that haven't really proven to be helpful or haven't really added to our quality of life, because it is so easy to remove all those important things from our lives to kind of protect our sleep or create better conditions for sleep. You just touched upon reading to your son, missing out on that wind down routine that used to be really enjoyable, that quality time you'd spend with your husband. So we do all these things that end up kind of moving us away from the kind of life we want to live. And they don't really have any effect on sleep itself, because we're still kind of setting ourselves up for longer periods of wakefulness by doing things like going to bed before we feel sleepy enough for sleep. But we're also, what else are we doing? We're kind of giving sleep a really negative role in our lives, when our whole life just revolves around sleep, and our behaviors change in a way that leads to less quality of life because of sleep. It just changes our whole relationship with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah. So you touched upon that behavior change that you found really helpful, which was just going to bed later, going to bed when you felt a stronger sense of sleepiness. Were there any other kind of behaviors that you changed to kind of help create better conditions for sleep, or that just helped improve your quality of life during the day, that now on reflection you can look back on and say that was helpful, that really helped me?
Yeah. Well, starting from I said to myself, whatever night I had the night before, I'm just gonna live my life. I'm just going to go out and exercise, and I'm just gonna say to insomnia, basically, I don't care, anymore if I have insomnia. I maybe I slept for for a couple of hours the night before, and I was tired and didn't feel like doing much, but I would basically just act like nothing was happening, and I would just, try my best, to do everything I wanted to do during the day. I would go out and just basically be active during the day, instead of lying down and just canceling plans, or not just doing my usual activities. And I changed that. I said, no, I'm not just going to let insomnia win anymore. So I basically, started to, little by little every day doing something more. I started to go out for walks, and just, even if I had dinner plans, I would go out, even if I didn't have much sleep the night before, and I would go to the gym and exercise, and even if I was tired. So I definitely changed that. And then I I said to myself, uh, 8 hours maybe, after after reading your tips and tricks, and your advices, and I thought, 8 hours is not for everyone. I can survive on less. So, why am I going to bed at a ridiculous time? I mean, at 9, I have to if I'm if I give myself the time I need at the end of the day to do something with my husband, or do something I enjoy, I'm relaxing, so I probably creating a better condition for sleep. So even if I get 5 hours and I'm productive the next day, this is fine for me. I mean, it's not a big deal. I mean, nothing will happen really. I mean, maybe I just need that. Maybe I don't need 8 hours anyway. So um, so I started to go to bed, later, and I I mean, I just basically just caring less. I had all these rituals before bed, really in a manic way. I mean, I would really just prepare everything like I was going to war, basically. Just really my sleepy time tea has to be ready at this time, and I have to be under the covers at this time. And I, I shouldn't watch any TV shows that was any that was interesting before bed. I would watch only boring shows before bed.
Yeah.
If I'm interested in watching a show and I like it, I wouldn't watch it before bed, because I said, no, I have to watch a show that I really saw a million times that wouldn't engage my mind. So I would only watch boring movies and old boring movies and old boring shows that I didn't even enjoy anymore. But I had to do that, because I wouldn't, I would be awake if if I watched something that really interested me and engaged me. And yeah, so I stopped the rituals basically. I just said, it doesn't matter anymore. Really, it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
Um, basically, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So I think that idea that we need to get like a certain amount of sleep, like 8 hours, is often thrown out there. That can just be
Mm-hmm.
one of these extra things, right? That is just like more pressure that we put on ourselves to make
Yeah.
sleep happen or to generate sleep. But nobody really knows where this 8 hours came from. We don't have much evidence that says human beings need 8 hours of sleep. We just look at ranges of average sleep durations and kind of try and guess from there. But I think sleep duration is like height. It's something that we all have like a unique height, or we're all going to
Mm-hmm.
be a certain height. We're all going to generate a certain amount of sleep, and that's different for everyone. And trying to get a certain amount of sleep or a certain type of sleep is a bit like trying to grow 7 foot tall. It's something
Yeah.
we can't control. And like any time we have averages involved, so if we
Mm-hmm.
say an average person will sleep 6 to 8 hours, something like that, there are always going to be happy, healthy people that exist outside those ranges because we're just looking at averages. And something else that can kind of compound this concern about sleep duration is the fact that when we ask an average person who has no issues with sleep how much sleep they get, they usually just kind of guess based on when they went to bed and when they got out of bed, and they just count that whole time as sleep. So they tend to
Mm-hmm.
overestimate how much sleep they get, which is probably why we tend to get closer to 8 hours when we're asking people.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we're struggling with insomnia, all those prolonged periods of wakefulness can seem even more intense. And studies show that we tend to underestimate the amount of sleep we get when we're struggling with insomnia. So that just makes this gap between our situation, the amount of sleep we're getting when we have insomnia, and where we want to be, just makes that gaps feel even wider, which can just create more worry, more anxiety, and we put more pressure on ourselves to sleep and engage in more of those sleep efforts for something that we really have no control over. We can certainly create better conditions for sleep, but there's nothing we can do to make sleep happen on command for us to get the amount of sleep or a certain type of sleep that we're after.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I just remember like reading in your emails that sleep can't be controlled. You can control sleep. Sleep will just actually happen on its own. It's
Mm-hmm.
a built-in mechanism, and you can't just control it. And yeah, I mean, when I read that, I said, okay, I will just, I have to lose some control here, because I
Mm-hmm.
was basically trying to control it like in a very obsessive way. So I have to just let it go, let go of
Yeah.
this, of all the obsessing about it, all the controlling, everything. Just let go, and it will
Yeah.
happen on its own. Yeah. So.
But it's really hard to do that, right? Because even
Mm,
if we hear this over and over again, we need to abandon that control, abandon that
mm,
obsession. It's
mm,
hard because the brain by default is wired to
yeah.
want to engage in rituals, to put effort into problems and to troubleshoot them. How do you
Mm-hmm.
how do you go from logically understanding that, yeah, I need to lose control, I need to just stop trying to get involved in the process, to
Mm-hmm.
actually taking action and doing it? How do
Mm-hmm.
you make that transition? Because it's difficult, right?
Mm. Well, I actually, I challenged myself. I said to myself, okay, I will just, um, I will just, not care and see how am I feeling. I mean, I was getting like even like 2 hours of sleep, three
Mm-hmm.
hours of sleep even. And the next day I would actually be productive, and I would go
Mm-hmm.
through the day and I would do everything I wanted to do. And I was fine at the end of the day, and
Mm.
nothing happened. I didn't go insane.
Yeah.
My job didn't suffer, my family didn't suffer, my health didn't suffer, everything was fine. I mean, and then I started getting like a little bit more, I mean, 4 hours of sleep. So my theory proved to be right. Nothing will happen. I mean, not sleep is just like you don't need to obsess about the 8 hours, the rituals, and just like you just have to lose control, because there's no switch. I mean, I'm actually, maybe because I'm a I'm a go-getter, so I when I want something, I would work on it. I would just obsess about it. And maybe the obsession here has a positive side, because when I put some, I obsess about something. I obtain it. So if I
Yeah.
really wanted to, like, get my driver license, for example, I would study in an obsessive way, and I would just practice and practice and practice to get it. So, and then I got my driver's license. And then the same thing I applied for sleep. Before I would say, okay, I have to work on sleep. So I would obsess about it and try to work on it. And I would just try all the stuff. I would try, like, I heard about, like, this heavy blanket that you would, like, put on your preferred bed to calm you or something. It was called the gravity blanket, I believe. I would try that. I would try so many stuff, like even like supplements and ashwagandha and maybe melatonin and lots of stuff, just to, because I believe that if I put effort in sleep, it will improve. But
Yeah.
actually, it's the only thing in life, actually, that you shouldn't really put any effort in.
Yeah.
And it doesn't respond to effort at all. You shouldn't really try anything on sleep. The more effort you try, the more stuff you try, the more supplements, the more rituals, the more, and it doesn't really respond to effort. It's just natural. It's like breathing at the end of
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah, it is. And I love that analogy about breathing, because I mean, I use it all the time, because breathing is something that we can sort of temporarily control, right? We can hold our breath, or we can breathe really quickly, but it's not something we can successfully control for very long. And we can hold our breath, but eventually, no matter how determined we are, we're going to breathe. Our body is just going to remove us from the equation and make us breathe. And insomnia and sleep is like that. No matter how desperate we're feeling, if we've been awake for 48 hours, not even a minute of sleep, sooner or later that the body is just going to remove us from the process and make some kind of sleep happen. The body will always generate, at the very least, the minimum amount of sleep we need, in just the same way that it will always ensure that we take the exact number of breaths that we need to take throughout the day. It's just something that we don't need to put that effort and all that energy into trying to control or to get involved in. But it is, like you've said, it is completely understandable why we would do that, because when we have a problem, we want to fix it. But sleep is that one thing in life that just does not respond well to effort. But that doesn't mean that we need to be resigned to living with chronic insomnia. It just means that we can shift those efforts to where they can be helpful, so we can do things like starting to starting to reclaim our lives, doing things again that are important to us, only going to bed when we're sleepy enough for sleep, not engaging in all these rituals that probably deep in the back of our minds we probably know aren't proving to be helpful, at least over the long term. It's just so difficult.
Yeah. And actually, I have an idea that maybe, like, lots of people who struggle with insomnia tend to be control freaks in their life. And maybe I'm wrong, but that is the idea that I get, because we like to control everything. We want it. And they tend to be people who are really goal oriented, and they want to reach their goals. So say they apply, like, this kind of mentality to sleep, and they try to, like, get their goal of sleep. I will try everything. I'll just put more effort. I will try harder. I will just try to apply everything I know to get this magic magic sleep, which is actually you really You don't really need to do anything, basically. Just,
Yeah.
just like my husband. Of course, I have a husband who is the world best sleeper,
Yeah.
who doesn't do anything to sleep, to generate sleep. And
Yeah.
he always say, I don't know, I just go to bed and I sleep. I don't do anything special.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you don't really need to do anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, you'll never. I something that I always say to myself, and I even heard that in one of your podcast episodes, that you will never like just forget how to sleep. Sleep is
Hmm.
just it's a function, it's a biological function that we have. And that really really helped me, because and at what point I really thought that it just, I lost this ability. And now I know, and I will never, doubt that anymore, that it's I just like I will never forget how to breathe. I
Hmm.
will never forget how to sleep. It's it's a built-in mechanism. It will never disappear or go away, or it just won't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And
Mm.
this is another reason why I just uh, love the way that we can explore our thoughts about sleep, our relationship with
Mm.
sleep, and change our
Yeah.
behaviors around sleep,
Mm.
to kind of starve insomnia of the oxygen it needs to survive. Because these are
Mm.
really, at the end of the day, they're kind of skills. So once we've harnessed these skills, we've practiced them, and we're sleeping better, I think it
Mhm.
makes us more resilient, because we have this completely new understanding about sleep, insomnia, um, and we know that we're armed with these techniques that are going to be with us forever. So if we ever find
Yeah.
ourselves struggling in the future, we can feel so much more confident that we can react in a
Yeah.
way that will minimize the length of that sleep disruption, so that one or two difficult nights aren't going to be the return of a long-term problem again.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So how long do you feel that the process was for you, from like the time when you were really, really struggling, to learning new insights about sleep and insomnia, gaining more knowledge about it, changing some behaviors, bringing back all those things back into your
Mm.
life that you'd maybe pushed
Mm.
away? How long
Mhm.
would you say that process was to where you felt more
Mm.
confident that
Mm.
sleep was no longer a big issue in your life?
Mm. Well, um I think I tried like I think I saw an improvement about after about like I think a month or something,
Hmm.
3 weeks to a month. I saw some improvements in my sleep, and then just applying more behavioral changes and more
Hmm.
advices that I saw in your emails, and tips that I got from your videos and your podcast. And I saw like an improvement little by little. So I would like after a month, I would say that I started to see that I was sleeping better. Maybe not perfectly, but
Yeah.
I was still sleeping better, and I was productive the next day. When I started to see that, I was really encouraged to go on. And I said, this is working. This is actually the only thing that is actually working. No
Mm.
medication, no supplements, just working on my mentality towards sleep and changing my behaviors, changing the way I thought about sleep is working. And
Yeah.
it was really helpful, because when I saw this improvement, I really before I thought that I had no hope at one point, and I was just destined to be stuck on medication for the rest of my life, or destined to have this life that was just full of fatigue and tiredness. And after like trying all the steps, I saw an improvement. It was really a ray of hope for me. And I really yeah, I mean, it was really great to see that, because I didn't believe at first that only changing my behaviors would help
Mhm.
so much. But I was wrong because it started to get better. And maybe at first, I was just getting maybe 5 hours, and then just after that it was a little bit more. And I actually saw in myself an improvement in the way I felt, even like at nighttime when I would be awake. I would be less anxious because I would always remember. Actually, your voice is actually really soothing, by the way. I don't know if someone had already said that to you, but I would always remember like a phrase that you would say after each episode of your podcast, that you can sleep. And it would really calm me, because I would remember, you can sleep, you can
Yeah.
sleep. It will happen at one point.
Yeah.
Is You shouldn't control it. And those tips, yeah, I mean, little by little, it started to get better. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's sleep like for you these days? If you just think back on your sleep over the last couple of weeks or so, what's an average
Mhm.
night like for you now?
Well, I would say about 6 or 7 hours
Mm-hmm.
every night, which is really okay for me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's perfect. Actually, I mean, I feel great. I don't feel tiredness after 6 or 7 hours. So
Mm-hmm.
this is fine for me. And I mean, I do struggle every once in a while, maybe
Yeah.
once a month,
Mm-hmm.
because as we said, we are more predisposed to insomnia, because maybe I'm having some anxious thoughts, or maybe I had a stressful day.
Yeah.
But it will never last more than one night or a couple of nights. And I would always apply all the behaviors that I learned, and all the
Yeah.
tips that we shared. And it would never be like this panic, or this anxiety inducing thing. I mean, it would just be this, okay, I had a bad night of sleep, it will get better. It will pass, and it passes. It never
Yeah.
never goes on. So right now it's really going better. It's I would say my sleep, at one point, is maybe like the sleep I had before all of these problems.
Mm.
I started to see like some improvements, even like, even before all this. Even before all this, I thought that I was a really great sleeper. And now I sometimes I even get like maybe 8 hours of sleep, or even
Yeah.
9 hours of sleep, if I can. And I really I thought that I would never get that naturally
Mm-hmm.
anymore. So even like having that, it's really even like built my confidence that um you don't need anything to sleep.
Yeah.
You can still get this 9 hours, you can still get those 8 hours naturally.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going well. It's going
That's
well.
great. Yeah. I always think that the real transformation is when there's a change in how we respond to those one-off difficult nights. So
Hmm.
instead of a difficult night being like just triggering all this worry and panic and changing what we do during the day, being
Hmm.
able to see a bad night for what it is, a bad night, a difficult night, and not responding in the same way, as we
Hmm.
might have done when we were really caught up in the insomnia struggle. I think that's the real sign of that a transformation has occurred, and that insomnia will never be able to work its way back into our lives again.
Yeah.
So that was really, really powerful for you to talk about that. I still have some difficult nights
Yeah.
every once in a while, but the way I respond to them, my interpretation of them, is completely different now.
Yeah.
And are you finding that? I think you've already implied it, but are you finding that your days now and just your overall quality of life has changed?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, I mean, in the past, I would say, this is just gonna be my life now. I mean, I would just be this person who who won't be able to do much in life,
Yeah.
basically. And now I honestly, it really it feels like a new beginning for me, to be honest, because I now can do so much stuff. I'm actually I went back to school
Oh, great.
after like getting better with insomnia, and after like seeing that I don't need to put things on hold. So
Mm,
I now applied for my master's degree. So this is a great win for me, and a huge like step that I needed to take. So
mhm.
yeah, and just in general, even going on vacation, or this used to be a huge concern for me. By the way, so I would always think that I couldn't go on vacation, for
Yeah.
example, because I would say, I can't sleep on a new bed. The hotels, maybe the bed is not comfortable. And then my vacation would be ruined by insomnia, so I can't go away. And actually, for 3 years, I didn't go on any vacations at all. And it
Mm,
was really, I mean, uh, it's just really sad, because you passed, maybe there was like some anniversaries, important anniversaries, or maybe like some birthdays or something that I missed on. And now I can do that. Like, even if I go, I would say to myself, if I go away and I didn't sleep for one night because, maybe you have to catch an early flight or something, that's fine. That's fine. That's just, everybody goes has
mm,
those, one off night every once in a while. It will not never be a problem. I will never
yeah.
panic about it. So yeah, I would say that my quality of life really really changed. Yeah, in
Yeah.
a much better way. Yeah.
That's great. Well, Deeandra, I really appreciate all the time that you've
Thank you.
taken to talk about your experience. There is just one last question I would love to ask you, because I ask every single guest this question, so I don't want you to feel left out. So the question is this: if someone with chronic insomnia is listening and feels as though they've tried everything, that they're beyond help, and that they cannot do anything to improve their sleep, what would you tell them?
I would say, I totally understand what you're going through. Not everybody understands, honestly, that insomnia can be really, really difficult. I know, because I've been there. I know you're struggling, uh, but don't lose hope. Never lose hope. And contact Martin, of course, because he's really patient and helpful, and he really, I believe that you really like to help people. You are never, you're not, your life is will get better, and you can get through this. And yeah, I mean, search for the website, listen to the podcast, and contact Martin, and maybe just give it a try, and just see for yourself. I believe that, um yeah, I mean, I believe that uh insomnia can be really difficult and lonely at some times, and uh, we just feel like it's hopeless at one point. But you really should try it, and you're not alone. And a huge hug, to be honest, because you really need it, because I know it's difficult.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And I think that's a really, really good note to end on. So thanks again, Deeandra, for coming out, taking some time out of your day to come onto the podcast. I just know that your story, your experience is going to help a lot of people. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you.